I had a student request sort of a quick video explaining your midterm assignment in this class. So I am putting this together for those of you who this is an example and a discussion of the assignment around spend and sort of that sort of economic inequality piece. So essentially, the basis of this assignment is that I want you to play Spent, which is a simulation produced by the Urban Ministries of Durham, North Carolina. The link is in the description, like in the guidelines. You should be able to find it, and if you don't, it's at playspent.org. It's fine. But that kind of conversation, I want you to play the game, okay? And I'm not evaluating how well you did. I'm not evaluating whether you can make it to the end of the month. That's not the point. The point is that I want you to sort of have some experience with this particular simulation, okay? So I'm going to ask you to play through it 3 times. You're welcome to play through it as many times as you want. That's not important. And for each of those times, I want you to sort of record some pretty basic data. So like, did you make it to the end of the month? How much money did you have left over at the end? And then a sort of like broader question of like, was there anything that sort of struck you in this particular thing? And so some of that is sort of like choices about that you made because it's a game, right? And that it's easy to sort of say to like a fictional child you don't have in a simulation on a computer game, oh, by the way, no, I have to work, I'm not coming to your school concert or whatever, in a way that it is not necessarily as easy to make that same choice if you have an actual child that you actually care about in front of you saying the same thing. So some like broad reflections around that. And then the rest, and that's 3 points out of 15 on your assignment, and it really is just like, did you do it? So this is not about you need 3 months where you made it to the end of the month. This is not about the high score, having how much money. This is basically 3 marks out of those 15 for like, did you do the thing? Okay. And it's mostly just so that I have sort of some way of making that work. And then the second part of it is if you look in the assignment guidelines, you will find a number of questions. I think there are 6 or 7 of them that are sort of about reflecting about this idea of spend. So some of them are about like what about this sort of resonated with your experiences, what didn't, like there's a variety of them. I'm not expecting you to answer all of them. What I want you to do is to pick 3 of them. And this is similar to sort of our introductory questions at the beginning of the semester, in that when I say pick 3, I don't really care which 3 you pick. I just want you to pick 3 and to sort of think about this example of sort of playing Spent and how that fits together alongside what we've done about economic inequality and social stratification and how that sort of those pieces fit together. So when you write those, you're looking for about a paragraph. This is an area where I need to be very clear about this. There are no right answers. You're not trying to guess what I think the correct answer is, because that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in those sort of reflection, in those questions, is that you're demonstrating an understanding of the content that we're working with. So, for example, that you have some sense of what we say and how we talk about inequality in sociology and how those pieces fit together. And that's about half of it. And then the other half of that question is like, can you do something with that? And that something might be taking a position, that might be justifying any number of like little things like that. All of that is totally fine. And it's not as though you need to get like a correct answer. Some of those questions are like, how do we solve poverty in Canada? And I'm going to tell you, there are people who have dedicated their entire lives to that. And I don't expect you to have the like perfect answer in a single paragraph. If you do have a perfect answer for that in a single paragraph, I'm not sure you should be in my class. I think you might be better placed, actually going to do whatever that paragraph told you to do, because that is probably a more pressing social need than sitting through Sociology 100 with me. Just as a way of saying, I'm not actually expecting you to have perfect answers. What I want to expose you to in this sort of midterm assignment is specifically the challenge and the complexity of working in sociology, of like using this content for really any reason. Because one of the things that's super important when we talk about sociology is that the interactions between human beings make everything we do in this field really, really complicated, right? If you look, for example, at physics, physics doesn't care how you feel about things. In sociology, we have to care how people feel about things because we assume that how they feel about things affects how they act, and how they act changes the structure of the thing. All of those pieces fit together. And that makes it really complicated, and that means a couple of things. One of which can be really scary, and that, like, it's really complicated to get perfect the first time. That can be really anxiety provoking, so I'm going to be very clear and say that's not what we're doing. But the other part of that sort of piece and that expression and that understanding is that, as far as it goes, that complexity and the fact that all of you live in this complexity and you navigate your own social worlds all the time means that sociologically, that space allows you to sort of contribute. Even in like a first year class, you can say something meaningful and you can work through these concepts in a way that is important and sometimes new. Like, I've had students suggest things, I'm like, I have never thought about it that way, but that makes perfect sense. And I'm now watching some of them from some years ago. I'm now watching some of them creating their own research and changing sort of how the discipline works around that, because they brought in their own questions and their own perceptions, right? The complexity of the field means in some ways that students can sort of like make contributions, and we don't worry so much in as a discipline about it being like the correct answer, right? When we talk about what's the definition of X, yeah, there's a correct answer, fine. But when we talk about how do we deal with poverty in this country, there isn't a single answer. And so what I'm interested in is how you justify that. If there's any questions, you can absolutely throw them up on the discussion board. I'm happy to answer them. Book time and office hours, we can do all of those things. But I did have a student ask for a video explaining what that was going to be look like. And I'll just sort of say, like, it's those 3 paragraphs, and that's about it. Don't worry too much about like title pages and that kind of stuff. That's not really what I'm interested in. I just want you sort of to think about this experience, this discussion of stratification, in terms of real people, not in terms of statistics, because teaching statistics is not what I do in this class. I want you guys to think about people and their experiences.